I feel like a broken record saying this, but nobody can stop Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton made it 5 wins from the first 7 races this season with another faultless drive at Spa. But there were some real surprises further down the order as some teams struggled around the high-speed track. Welcome back to the Formula One Grid Talk podcast. Today we'll be reviewing the Belgian Grand Prix. We are powered by the F1 Chronicle. Visit f1chronicle.com for news, reviews and opinions on all things F1. Hosting today with me, George Howson, and joining me today are motorsports podcaster Philip Mathew.
Hello.
Sports journalist Dev Tyagi. And president of the Dan Ticktum Fan Club, it's Sam Thatcher.
I was waiting for that. It's always good. Did you come up with that like this morning when I called Dan Ticktum a prick?
Yeah, just slightly after that.
Right.
To be fair, we're not going to go on F2, but to be fair, Dan Ticktum was a prick today. Jesus, he was bad.
Yeah.
Bad driving and bad radio chat. Anyway, back to F1. So yeah, like I said earlier, Dev, faultless drive by Lewis Hamilton. He didn't really have any troubles. Bottas tried his best to keep with him, but he couldn't. Aside from the tyres going at the end, it was a really easy day for him, to be honest.
Yeah, I was just thinking of it in light of in that the kind of margin of advantage he had right there out in the front as the track leader. He could have just gone through a McDonald's driveway, ordered a burger, had a shake, then could have just come back and won the race. He was just absolutely untouchable today, Lewis Hamilton. And now in touching distance of Michael Schumacher's overall win record, just too shy of matching 91. So, I mean, there's just another day, another regular day in the office for Hammer time.
Yeah, unbelievable. 89 wins now. He's probably going to beat Schumacher's record this year. Another pole position for him as well earlier in the weekend, just on another level to Bottas. I mean, like I say, I feel like a broken record saying it, but again, Hamilton, just no trouble for the guy. Just on top form yet again. That Mercedes, just the grip levels it had in qualifying. It was as straightforward as it could be, doing 44 laps around that circuit today.
When you consider race day at Spa, they were talking about rain. It never came. I think that would have been the one piece that could have made it a little more dramatic in a sense. But he got the start. He was able to hold off Bottas there in turn 1, which he said he basically had to park it, he got out of turn 1, spun his tires, which then held Bottas back, which was literally where the race was won. I mean, honestly, he won the race yesterday. I mean, half a second quicker than his own teammate in the same car. That was it. And he got the start. Yeah, the wreck with that we'll talk about later came on, and they had to get a safety car, the harder tire, putting on the hards. It could have been a play where it would have been the British Grand Prix all over again. But in the end, he had enough of a gap, and he brought it back, and he got in there. And yet another win, 2 away, as Dev said, of the great M. Schumacher, who made his debut at this great race many, many years ago and won his first race there too.
Yeah, it's a 47-point lead that Hamilton now has over Max Verstappen. That's almost 2 wins at this very early stage as well. It's long way still to go, 10 races still to go off the top of my head, I think, but you can't really see anybody stopping Hamilton getting a 7th world title and matching Schumacher's title record, beating his wins records. He's already beat his pole record. He's beat his podium record. It's all there for him. He's almost got all of it also. Hats off to him. Unbelievable. Second place, Sam, was Bottas, and we've talked a lot about him not really potentially making the most of his car, but is it just a case of him just not being as good as Hamilton? Because it's a really hard thing to be paired with Lewis Hamilton in the same car.
Bottas is a good driver. He's a good driver. He's a really good number 2. But every time we've done this and we said, next time he might be. We'd love to see him make a fight of it, but every time we just keep getting disappointed. And today was another example of that, where he has an opportunity off the start, but he just can't quite get it done. And then as soon as Hamilton went into Les Combes, first position, I just kind of knew that the race was done there, to be honest. And now I think he's level on points with Verstappen now, isn't he? I think they've got the exact same points or around that. It's 47 points. There's almost 2 wins, and I don't see Hamilton DNFing twice in order to bring Bottas back into it. So this is Bottas 3.0 now, I believe. Is it going to be 4.0 next year? Probably not. And I reckon he'll be out of the seat by the end of next year, which is kind of fair enough because he's had, 4 years there now, really. Yeah, so it's 50 points to Bottas. Cheers, Phil. So, yeah, I think he'll be out of that car by the end of next year, which is fair play. 4 seasons, and he hasn't really put up a good fight. To be honest, we had that fleeting moment where Hamilton said he was losing power, and everyone kind of probably cheered a little bit inside, and then he on that exact same lap he goes and sets the fastest lap of the race. So yeah, we saw again today how Hamilton's just a world-class driver and Bottas is just a good to great driver. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I can't agree with anything you just said there. I think if Bottas keeps going like he is, then we could well have Russell in the car for 2022 alongside Hamilton. But I guess if he's doing enough, if he's second in the championship at the end of the season, he is doing enough. But at the moment, he's not. He's 3 points behind.
He's like your Barrichello kind of driver, isn't he? Great number 2, but just not quite good enough to challenge.
Actually, on that thought, there was somebody on social media who already came out with a meme called Bottas Kello or something like that. And I think that was fairly apt. I'd agree. Yeah, that's an accurate meme. So.
Got Sam's seal of approval, so it must be a good meme.
The meme lord.
Right, moving further down the order. So third place, Dev, was Max Verstappen. Another good result for him. Outdrive. I think Horner said, Max Verstappen said that it's a bit wrong saying that he's outdriving the car, but I think he is outdriving the car. He challenged Bottas, did everything he could to get past. He almost got past on that one, but not quite there in the end. It's still a good result, though, for him.
Yeah, with every passing Grand Prix, we get to see the capability of Max Verstappen, and then you can't help but entertain the thought that what might have happened if he would have had the Mercedes seat, just to quote an example, the kind of stuff he would have pulled out, because this clearly isn't the fastest Red Bull. And if you actually were to refer back to his comments at the end of the race, Max was saying that it was such a usual race for me that I actually felt a little bored and out of place, and it was basically a sleep-inducing race, for the lack of a better word. But all credit to Max, who actually notched up his 6th consecutive podium, and I think that calls off for some consistency. And if there was a consistency award, he would be Mr. Consistency of 2020, which also means that it's also heavy pressure on the guy who's teaming up with Mad Max, because he's clearly the number 1 driver, and the team revolves around him, and it's not really hard to see why.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to Hamilton and Bottas at Mercedes. You've got a great driver, a true great in Verstappen, and you've got, in my mind, a good driver in Albon. It's only his second season F1. I think people should lay off him a little bit, but today was an interesting one. We'll talk more about him. But yeah, good result for Verstappen, matching I think his consecutive podium record in F1, 6 consecutive podiums, doing everything he can to challenge the Mercedes. But even he, at his best, he can't match them cars. They're just something else. Engine, downforce, drivers, strategy, everything. They got it all. But a real surprise today, Phil, potentially the surprise of the weekend before qualifying at least. Daniel Ricciardo, 4th place, 1 place away from his team principal getting an unfortunate tattoo, I think.
I wanted that in the worst way, mainly because I don't like Cyril, and also because I like Danny Rick, and he was feeling good about things. The car was working for once. It was a good weekend for Renault. These lower downforce circuits are seemingly the places where they're able to show their stuff. They look better than the Tracing Point. They look better than the McLaren in these circuits. And there are some other circuits that are kind of medium to low coming up as we go through the rest of this now certified 2020 calendar with 17 races. So, a great run by Ricciardo, getting the fastest lap there, getting that extra point, also putting himself right in the conversation for 4th in the World Championship with that performance. It's nice to see. It's where really all the entertainment is now. You have to go and start at 4th and see from back there to the rest of the battle at the points. But hopefully similar performance for the Ricciardo fans and for people who support Renault. in terms of Monza next week, after last year when he finished fourth, starting fifth, finished fourth in that race. So maybe a similar result, maybe a little better next week.
Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, it's interesting, Renault, and another thing as well is that he was only 3 or so seconds behind Verstappen at the end. The Renaults really kept their tyres well during this race. And I have to say, I'm surprised. I mean, yeah, they did well at Monza last year, but they're not particularly great this year. But that low drag setup on the Renaults working an absolute treat for them. 4th and 5th this weekend, and it was absolutely earned. It wasn't a fluke at all.
Yeah, as Phil said, the setup they run at these kind of tracks, which are quite power dependent, seem to suit their car really well. I remember Canada last year; they also had a very good race, and 4th and 5th in Monza last year. So yeah, very good weekend from them. It kind of goes against the grain of Renault really, because we're kind of used to them like showing a lot of potential in Friday practice and qualifying, and not really replicating it during a race. But yeah, they look strong this whole weekend, and I can see them having another strong weekend next weekend in Monza, because that's even more power dependent, less circuits, less downforce. You pretty much run the least downforce possible when you go to Monza. So I can see them having another good haul of points next week, and yeah, it's been a good weekend for them. After Spain was pretty dreadful, wasn't it, for them? They didn't have a good weekend there at all. So yeah, they've had it's just Renault's very inconsistent, but yeah, these tracks are where they excel a lot.
Yeah, we've got Monza, we've got Mugello later in the season, we've got Imola, we have the Bahrain outer circuit, the Bahrain Oval, as some people are calling it as well. It is looking good for them. After Spain, it looked very dismal. All they could get really was 6th in the championship, but now just 9 points off of McLaren in 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship. It's just 9 points between McLaren in 3rd and Renault in 6th. It is tight in that upper midfield battle. That's what, like Phil said, that is where the action is right now. Yeah, so amazing for Renault, 4th and 5th, matching their best result in F1 since coming back in 2016.
That's actually the most. I saw them tweet. That's actually the most points they've ever won in a single race. This race, they got the fastest lap, and of course, back in the day, you didn't get as much points for winning the races, do you? So you get more points these days. So they 23 points, I think they won today, which is their most ever points at a single race. So fair play.
Yeah, a bit of a technicality. But
yeah, could have been even more if there was 2 more laps. Ricardo might have got.
He could have got his first podium for Renault, and Renault's first podium since coming back to F1. So, yeah, but you never know. They could get a podium around some of the other tracks we've got later in the season, especially if reliability problems hit other teams. Now, Dev, mixed feelings today about Alexander Albon, 6th place in the end, which is disappointing, finishing behind both Renaults. But at the same time, he was kind of hung out to dry by his team because he was put on the medium tyres to do a mega stint in the 2nd stint. So where does the blame lie here? Is it Albon not being quick enough, or is it the team just being poor in strategy?
I think part of the blame, the better part of the blame should actually rest with this team, because they actually just ensured that he would stay out for that longer stint, as you rightly mentioned. But on his part, he might feel a bit disappointed simply for the fact that he qualified 5th for the 2020 Belgian Grand Prix, and then he ends up 6th. But in that entire process of falling back and then coming back into the higher up rankings of points, there were some amazing overtakes, and he ensured that the Red Bull was never going to be caught by Norris's McLaren and the other cars, and it actually significantly proved to be a quicker machine that both when compared to both the racing points. So fair play to him. But yeah, I mean, it was just one of those days where he could have just had that extra assistance from the team, which never came.
Yeah, wasn't helped by his team today, not at all. I think he did quite well to get 6th in the end, because it was quite close between him and Lando Norris. Phil, I mean, very mixed day for McLaren today. Sainz not getting off the line because of the exhaust issue, but Lando Norris doing amazingly well to get 7th in the end.
Yeah, going and basically taking what they could get out of this weekend. They'd had a solid yet unspectacular weekend, back half of the top 10. I think they were both looking at points before today. Sainz not being able to run was a huge detriment in terms of the Constructors' Championship, especially with Renault's performance today, as Sam said and you said. I mean, the Constructors, in terms of 3rd in points, McLaren is only 2 ahead of Racing Point, and it's less than 10 between them and Renault. So there's 4 teams, 10 points, less than 10 points. I think Sainz would have been able to do something. You know that Lando, he's going to get the most out of the car. He had a great run there last year. They mentioned that, and then I think he had a power unit issue late and then couldn't finish. So to him to get a finish, him leaving positive, going to Monza is a good thing. Balance out the negative of not even getting Carlos Sainz out on the racetrack. I mean, that's a brutal thing considering the Renault engine and how well it's performing on these longer straights, these kind of circuits. So good on Lando and McLaren there to get to salvage the 7th place. They could have possibly gotten Albon there with the better tire, but time ran out.
Yeah, another lap and he would have had him probably, but he ran out of time, unfortunately. But he will feel redeemed after the heartbreaker last year. I think it was running 5th. His engine failed on the last lap.
Yeah. It was like on the last bus top chicane, it just cut out, I believe. That's what happened. And Sainz didn't race last year either because he stalled on the grid. So he has two seasons in 2 seasons in McLaren. Sainz hasn't raced on Spa for either of them.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Sainz is really unlucky at Spa. Alonso was really unlucky at Spa as well. I don't think he ever won around there. He might do in the future potentially if Renault keep improving like they have been doing, but he's never won at Spa, which is weird for a driver who has had as much success as he has. 8th place, Sam, was Pierre Gasly, and this guy had such an eventful race. He started on the hard. He was doing incredible pace in the early stages. Safety car came at a bad time for him, dropped to the back of the pack, and finishes 8th by the finish. What a race for him.
Yeah, that was a great drive from Pierre today. Like, just continuing the excellent year that he's having. I mean, like, I think he deserves to have more points than what he actually has at the moment. To be honest, he's been unlucky a couple of times. Yeah, like he started well on the hard tire, then an absolutely amazing overtake on Sergio Perez going up through Eau Rouge and Radillon. Probably maybe the overtake of the season so far. Unlucky timing with the safety car. Thought that might work against him, having not came in and everyone else being on fresh tyres, but he managed to hold people back for quite a bit before getting overtaken and boxed at like perfect time, really. Great call by the AlphaTauri strategist, bringing him in onto the medium tyres, and he was able to really like go through the pack, dispatching all the cars one by one, and on a very kind of emotional weekend for him, I imagine, with the death of Antoine last year at this circuit. So very happy for him. He continues his great year, and he's got to be staking claim, I'd say, for like maybe being voted back up to Red Bull or maybe even like a Renault driver in the future, maybe after Alonso. Don't know how long Alonso is going to stay for, but if Gasly is still in the sport by then, if he continues this great form, then he's got to be in the running for like maybe a top drive in the next couple of years. That's what I'd say.
Definitely showing. I mean, he's another guy who's potentially outperforming the car a little bit as well. He's doing brilliant in the AlphaTauri. He's really putting Albon under pressure. Only 2 places and about 5 seconds behind him today. There you go. But yeah, like we said as well, it's been like you mentioned, Sam. It's been a year since Antoine Hubert passed away, so it's a very emotional time for him. I believe his house got burgled as well recently, Gasly.
Like after the Spanish Grand Prix, like they stole a load of like memorabilia, like helmets and maybe medals, I think, something like that, got nicked from his house, which is really just unfortunate. So he's had a lot of like mental toughness to get through like this last year, because obviously he got demoted from Red Bull, and then Antoine passed away, and then so yeah, it's been through like a roller coaster, and got the podium as well. So it's like a roller coaster of emotions that he's been through in the past kind of 12, 13 months. So he's done really well.
Yeah, it's admirable how well he's done in that AlphaTauri Toro Rosso last year as well. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But if he did go up to Red Bull, would he be as good as Albon? Would he be better?
Yeah, that's the thing. The Red Bull is just made to suit Max's driving style, isn't it? They won't budge from that. So I don't even know that's a good move for him, because he might not even not want it, to be honest. I really don't know. So it's difficult, really.
Yeah, you're shaking your head, Phil. I'm with you on this one. I don't think it'd be a good move for him. I think it'd be
It doesn't matter who you put in that second car. It's been this way basically since it goes all the way back to Weber I mean, I think that was the last time where they were able to basically give two good cars was when Weber was there. And then from then on, there's one car has always had some malfunction. You know, Vettel's last year at Red Bull, he was nowhere, and Ricciardo won 3 races. And then from then on, there's always been this. And Red Bull's great motivating system that they have of demoting drivers if they don't get results after like 5 races. Supreme leadership they have. That's part and parcel for why the likes of Alexander Albon is up against it, where Pierre Gasly now is sitting there like, oh, maybe you should put him back. It doesn't matter who you put there. Put a veteran in that car, and let's see if a veteran driver that is a non-Red Bull guy, and let's see what could happen. You know, then we can go and truly question what Red Bull's doing in terms of their cars. I know they want Max to win, but you should want to perform in the constructors too, because that's where you get your money.
Well, let us know in the comments below. Tweet us at F1 Chronicle if you guys think that Red Bull have been unfair to their second driver, whoever it is. I think they probably are, to be fair. The pressure's unbelievable. They're under.
They definitely should have given Pierre more time. It's like last year. I mean, he gave what 10, 11 races. I mean, he didn't. I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it, to say.
I think Albon's done better at Red Bull than Gasly was doing at Red Bull. I think in that sense, it's been a good move.
Like the second half of last year, yeah, Albon did really well, but this year he's definitely struggled to continue that momentum on. He's not done bad, but he's always
always something's holding him up.
Yeah.
Is Albon doing a good job again? Just let us know. You can. This goes out live on Sundays as well. So like our Facebook page, F1 Chronicle, if you want to see this broadcast live just after the race itself. Now, Dev, I have to say, a surprise in a bad way this weekend was Racing Point. Now, 9th and 10th. I went for Perez for the podium. I thought they had a really good chance today of getting some big points, but very disappointed. Nowhere in qualifying, not really anywhere in the race either. Lance Stroll 9th and Sergio Perez in 10th. Yeah,
they didn't really have the blistering pace that you have seen from them, in events like Hungary and the 70th anniversary Grand Prix, where remember, despite all the focus being with Hülkenberg, it was Lance Stroll who managed to finish with 6th. But today, they were just really caught napping, perhaps, But I think fair play to Perez, because he was the guy who went on the longest stint. He almost went up till the halfway mark without fresh rubber. And then when he had fresh rubber there, he fell back to the rear end of the track. And then it was all what was left of it anyway was basically just to play catch up, which he actually did well in the end. And then 9th and 10th in the end, but they would really feel that they could have done significantly better. And I couldn't really see anything tremendous from Lance Stroll today. But yeah, I think it was Perez who was seemingly the busier of the duo in that car.
Yeah, I feel like they probably did the best, but just poor strategy for Perez. I mean, he had to go so long on those softs. He was doomed from the start with that, really. And Stroll doing the best he could, probably, but again, just the car. I don't know if they just struggle with his setup or what, but just not really working. It's bizarre. They seem to be the team that always seem to overachieve with an average car are now underachieving with a great car. It's bizarre.
I was thinking they could be in the mix for a podium as well. And
we all were.
Not Renault. It's just so surprising, like how slow they were. Like even yesterday.
Like you would think in terms of the first and third sectors, based on their car, they should be able to stand out and make time. But as Lewis showed over everybody else, the second sector is where you make all your time, and they were just nowhere. And also that, the typical great strategy of Force India, I call them Force India, slipped their Racing Point, going and dooming their second driver. Every week this happens. I mean, I'm starting to wonder seriously. I mean, it's like, why don't you just? I wish Lawrence Stroll would just come out and say, "Look, I just want my son to finish ahead of my other driver, even though it's going to screw us both up in terms of constructors and all." But I mean, it would be better. In Otmar Saf now, when he goes and gets on one of his ego trips, when they go and connect to him on Sky F1. then he won't have anything to talk about. He's like, oh yeah, your boss just went and said that he wants his son to finish ahead of him. So it doesn't really matter what you do with strategy. I mean, it's just stupid. If they had at least pitted Perez similar to where Gasly pitted, tell me that you're going to pit him at the same time as Gasly. Okay, fine. That makes a little more sense in terms of the strat. You don't bring him in during the full course yellow and then safety car, and then they bring him in 5 laps later. I don't get where that makes any sense. And they just lost out on extra points that way because of it.
The only thing they could have saved him was another safety car or another VSC or something like that. But that's just a massive chance.
Yeah. There's no reason why they didn't pit Perez as well during the safety car, because every other team pretty much double stacked. So why couldn't they do it? Like, it makes no sense.
No.
If Perez did, he got through the field, to be fair, like Gasly, he made loads of overtakes to get back into the points, and fair play to him. But his job could have been a lot easier had they have not screwed him over, like Phil said, with the tyre strategy.
Yeah, it's a classic. What were they thinking kind of thing? I don't know what they were trying to do. They probably weren't the worst performance this week. They yet to come. Nothing really to say about Danny Kvyat. He did a decent drive to get in 11th place in the end. Was running the points for a bit. Lost out to Gasly and Perez when they were coming back on fresher tyres. Because it's Kimi Räikkönen and Dev, I'm going to come to you. I mean, we were both thinking just maybe he can hold on in the points here, but it wasn't to be. But he did beat both Ferraris. So I have to say this was a very fine drive by him, even if he's got nothing to show for it. Yeah,
it's funny in the sense that you have a works team and then you have a customer team, and then the latter ends up beating the former. But fair play to Räikkönen. He did what he could have. As you rightly said, at one point in time, even I was optimistic of that one elusive point being backed by the oldest man on the grid, but it wasn't to be his day. But I think he did manage a fairly decent ride, and there were a couple of exciting moves, one on the outside of George Russell very early into the race, and then eventually got the better of Sebastian Vettel. But when it came to the straight line speed, then Kimi was having a shit. There was nothing in the car really, so he had to just give in, and that was that. The only Alpha running in points. I'm actually glad that Antonio did not emerge injured. That did look a scary crash when it happened. God bless both those drivers, but yeah, P12 is what Kimi could do today. Yeah, it's all he could do in the end. Antonio Giovinazzi, like you said, having a nasty crash which brought the safety car out, just ran wide, got on the curb, and smashed his rear end in, and then unfortunately George Russell got caught up in that as well. So both cars retired damage after those incidents. So yeah, but luckily nobody really hurt in it, which is good. They got out of the car pretty quick. Now we're waiting for this. So 13th, 14th place, Vettel and Leclerc, and this wasn't through bad luck. This wasn't through really poor strategy, even just an inherent lack of pace in the car. Phil, I mean, you likening that car to a red toilet on wheels is really looking accurate right now. This has got to be one of the worst races for Ferrari that I can remember, really.
It reminds me of when they went and put Luca Badour in the car 10 years ago after Massa's unfortunate injury, which, thanks to this halo and, the aero screen in the IndyCar series, thankfully, George Russell was fine, Giovinazzi was fine. We'll talk about, and other IndyCar drivers have been safer in this whole year. But Badour was nowhere. He was so far off the pace, and it was a shame after all he had went through, all the things he'd gone through in his career. And then they put Fisichella in the car, and he was also nowhere. That's what it looked like, and it's crazy. It reminds me of the 90s Prix Schumacher Ferrari, the way that they're not run very well, that they're not working with the drivers. It almost seems like the drivers are on their own, kind of managing their own strats. And it's like having Gerhard Berger trying to prank Jean Alesi all the time to do stupid stuff because Jean Alesi would. It's similar to this now. It's insane how far Ferrari, 2-3 years ago, Vettel was leading the world championship, and it was by merit. He goes and crashes at the German Grand Prix with a win, basically locked up, And from that moment on, I swear there's just been this drop, slow decline to now you're getting beat by Raikkonen, who, God love him. I mean, he probably had a nice drink or two and got in and relaxed, and he was feeling good about the world. And it's his favorite circuit. He's now tied with Lewis and the great Jim Clark for 4 wins. So he's like, hey, I'll go and get a 12th place. I'll beat the Ferrari. It's all good. It's old hat, but I mean, it's unbelievable. And we talked about it before we came on, all of us. It's like you're talking about Monza next week. A year ago, Charles Leclerc went and his friend in Hubert passes away. He goes and gets his first Grand Prix win after a front row start. The following week, they get another front row or whatever, and they win. They're not even going to make Q3 next week, more than likely, unless they take the wings off or they do something crazy, or they get a new party mode because they have the hookup with the FIA versus Mercedes, and then they get like an extra 150 horsepower. I don't know where that's going to come. Maybe they could put the V12 engine back in from back in the day. Maybe they could do that. You could see if that happens. I would do it just for the sound, whether they compete or not. But, I think they have to do something. But that isn't going to work. I have an idea of what they should be doing, but I don't think the Tifosi or what's-his-face is going to want to do that. But the way things are going, it's not going to get any better.
No, it's if anything, it's only going to get worse because, like I say, Monza's even worse for straight line speed. I mean,
did any of you see the reaction of Sainz when the Ferrari was lapped by Raikkonen?
Yeah, it was like putting his head in his hands like that.
What have I done?
Where am I going next year?
Oh my God, that is literally, and at this moment, Sainz knew that he fucked up. It's literally like that. It's
pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, thank God there's going to be no fans there next week, because that would have been an absolute bloodbath of just Italian passion just roaring down Mattia Binotto's head. I'd absolutely hate to be him really right now, honestly.
Well,
feeling
they can wait till Mugello. So.
Yeah, because there might be fans actually at Mugello, like a number of fans.
Oh no.
So yeah, it's not going to go down well there next week. What happens? I mean, like Phil said, it's crazy how much different the year can make. Like they showed the comparison of the laps, like during qualifying yesterday from like this year and last year, and it's just crazy how much time they've lost. So it's just like it's as if they've just not adapt, like on F1 where you have to adapt the parts at the end of the season because of regulation change. They just haven't done it, like, and they've just gone down in the R&D tree or something. Like they haven't really adapted. Like they've lost so much speed. So the car is so draggy, it's unbelievable. Like Leclerc today, Kemmel Straight, he lost. Well, he had a really good start. Like he was up to like 8th, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And 5 laps later, everyone just goes. Even the Hasses are giving him trouble. The Haas, like it's unbelievable. I can't believe it. It's funny, but I just can't believe
it. It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, they don't even have the excuse of the engine. They took all the downforce off of that car.
Yeah.
It's still not quick in a straight line. It's terrible in the corners. They lose like 2 seconds or something like that to the Mercedes in qualifying for the middle sector alone. They got beat by Raikkonen's Alfa Romeo. The Haas of Grosjean was just behind Leclerc at the end. Magnussen wasn't too far behind either. I mean, Phil, you mentioned about Binotto being under pressure and everything because all these Italian races. I'll be surprised if he's not waking up with a horse's head at the foot of his bed. Honestly, it's incredible how this guy cannot see out the season. I can't, especially with how Ferrari are. I can't see him seeing out the season. But yeah, it's just awful, and it's getting worse. They're not catching people up. They're slipping further behind, if anything. I don't even know.
It's not going to get any better next year either because the regulations aren't changing really at all, are they? So
no,
don't see how it gets better. They've got to just chalk up until 2022 and just see what they can do from there.
Need to dump out the rest of this season too, and just try to get down to 7th in the constructors and hope that the development tokens that they have left plus the aero time that they'll have can make them relevant. That's all they have right now. I mean, it's extreme, but you have to do extreme times call for extreme measures. And when you're getting beat by your customer teams whose cars are not very good, and I mean, outside of Kimi Räikkönen, he's the only elite level kind of talent there. It's unacceptable. And they spend all this money for Formula One to run 13th and 14th. I mean, that's ridiculous. If I was a Ferrari fan, I wouldn't be happy about it. And if I'm a driver of one of those things, I'm not trying to sit in a porcelain throne. I'm trying to sit in a Formula One car, and I'm driving a porcelain throne. So, I mean, if I wanted to drive a Schwartzman's F2 car, I could, and it would probably be faster, but it's not what I'm driving. I'm driving a Ferrari, so I don't know.
That's sort of another thing. I mean, like you said, Sam, about comparing the lap times. Ferrari are the only team to go slower in qualifying this year than last year. Williams have gained 4 seconds. I think that's worth a mention. That's very admirable. But Ferrari is half a second slower. And I saw another stat as well that said that Leclerc in Q1 this year was slower than his Sauber qualifying time in 2018 around Belgium.
Wow.
Only by a couple thousands, but slower still in a Sauber.
Crazy, isn't it?
Blows your mind, doesn't it? Absolutely blows your mind. Yeah, we will talk more about Ferrari, whether it be the Italian Grand Prix preview. We will have that straight away after this. If you listen after the recording, we'll have it on Wednesday, most likely. You'll be able to listen to it. But yeah, let's get through the other guys. Romain Grosjean, 15th in the Haas. It usually does quite well on Spa, but that car is just no good, really. It's even worse than the Ferrari. Nicholas Latifi, 16th, he finished the race. Decent job. Williams, again, struggling during the race. Kevin Magnussen, 17th, the final finisher. Again, just couldn't do much with that Haas car, really. Right, lads, driver of the day time. Oh, this is a tough one. I am going to say, just because of how close he was to Max Verstappen at the finish and getting the fastest lap in his run-out, I'm going to give it to Daniel Ricciardo. Dev, who's your driver of the day?
I second you on Danny Rick. Also because of the fact that he actually equaled his best ever performance for this season, because he also got a 4th at Silverstone, first round. And, P4 is a great result for a very strong midfield team. And as everybody has been rightly pointing out, that any more laps in that race, and who knows, he could have caught up with Max. But to me, as a fan, as somebody who hugely admires the Honey Badger, what surprised me the most in the first half of the race was that there was a time when the gap between him and Verstappen was as wide as 16 seconds. So, kudos to the Aussie driver for actually shrinking it towards the final laps and just emerging very well and very close in sight of fighting P3, but it was never to be. So 4th is what he had to settle with. My driver of the day, Daniel Ricciardo.
Very well. Point very well made there, Dev. Phil?
Well, I was going to go with Danny Rick, but I'll just go different here. I'll go with Gasly. He's definitely, as everyone has said so far here, I mean, Gasly's performance relative to the Torpedo, it's like they're in 2 different cars. And that's one thing. I think Gasly is comfortable. He feels good in this team for as long as he's going to be there. I think the performance potential out of this AlphaTauri, there might be more there, which is something surprising, you'd say. And he's been running really, really well. He's had some good qualifyings. He's also put on some good races. And it's something that when you consider he got demoted, Sam talked about a year ago, and all the stuff he's gone through in a year, and now he's at a different mental mind space, and I think he's feeling very good about his situation. And I think for the rest of this season, it's kind of maximizing his points and opportunity, their place in the constructors relative to probably having a new teammate next year and being the lead guy for sure at the AlphaTauri team.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke to that as well. It could well be Tsunoda in that car alongside him, AlphaTauri, but maybe Gasly will stay in AlphaTauri. Maybe he'll be promoted. Who knows? Sam, what are you saying?
I'm going to agree with Phil and go with Pierre. Just everything he just said, I completely agree with. He's been amazing this season, and compared to Daniel, I think he's just done a great job. And today he pulled off an absolutely amazing overtake on Perez, going up to the Voie Rouge, even with a kind of a weird strategy pulled it off, got good points, and had a great season. Yeah, I kind of agree with you that Daniel, he's kind of got. I don't really know what he's doing. Really, he's probably not going to be there next season. He's not really going anywhere. I think it's probably better for them to go with a younger driver like Sonoda. If they can get the super license points, I'd love them to stick him in that car as well with like a Honda power team. I think that could be really good for them. So, but yeah, no, Gasly, driver of the day.
Split down the middle, but either way, it's a Red Bull driver, one way or another. But yes, so we have an official store for merchandise. Just go to the F1 Chronicles website for custom mugs, t-shirts, and more. Broadcast this show live on Facebook, so if you want to get involved with that, go like the F1 Chronicles Facebook page, see the show early. We are also available on F1 Chronicles website, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Omni Studio Podcast. Just search for the F1 Grid Talk and all of those. We've got a back catalogue of over 50 episodes now, not just race previews and reviews like this. We also have an interview with Mario Sola, the head of Pirelli, Tiagate, Ayrton Senna, things like that. Go to the subreddit F1 Grid Talk to get more information on the show, and our Patreon as well, F1 Grid Talk, for new mics, lights, and better recording equipment, because I've broke my headphones. So if you guys can donate and get me a new pair, it'd be very much appreciated. We will be back on Wednesday to preview the Italian Grand Prix. Until then, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Adios.